Howdy, everybody. This is Joseph P. Farrell, and it's news and views from the Nefarium for Thursday, January 2012. It's Thursday, January the 19th. And, wow. I wanted to comment on two very unrelated things. The first is Chris Hedges, whom Dr. DeHart and I cite his book, American Fascists, the Christian Right and the War on America. He's a former New York Times reporter and a journalist, seminary graduate. He's kind of what one would call, I guess, a liberal Christian, but he has initiated a lawsuit against the Obama administration for the recent National Defense Authorization Act, which of course has been quite the talk on the internet and in various places, because of its provision to allow the government to use the military to arrest anyone that it suspects of terrorism in any way. And I'm wanting to link that in the article that accompanies this on the website, because I think it's a pretty good interview. It was given on Democracy Now! And Chris Hedges makes it very clear that this act, in his opinion, is a complete subversion of the Constitution, and that it needs to be stopped, and stopped now. And he has filed a lawsuit, and he and his lawyer are being interviewed on Democracy Now! So I want to link that because I think it's a pretty important interview given by a man that I greatly respect, because what he also does, as you're probably familiar if you've read Yahweh, the Two-Faced God, it's in the Kindle and Lulu now. If you've read that book, Mr. Hedges also is fairly unsparing in his criticism of the kind of evangelical theology that guides and influences not only so much American internal politics, but also its external geopolitics, its foreign politics, and particularly the unquestioning, almost uncritical support that the evangelical community gives to the nation of Israel. So Hedges is a fairly important fellow. You may have seen him during his Occupy Wall Street interviews. So he has filed this lawsuit, and it's a story I wanted to bring to your attention and to update everybody with, and you'll see that link on the website for this news and views from the Nefarium. I hope you all give that interview a look. It's about 10 minutes long. It's not too long, but I think you'll enjoy it. The other thing I wanted to comment on is, wow. As you know, I wrote a blog this last week called What the Hell is Going On in the Alternative Research Community? And I didn't know that I would be touching off a firestorm with that article. I've heard from William Henry, the researcher that I linked in the original interview that he gave with Randy Maugans, and I've heard from some other well-known names in the alternative research community as well that tend, much to my surprise, to agree with me that there is too much scenario building, too much reliance on so-called whistleblowers and insiders and apocalypticism and so on and so forth. So I wanted to comment a bit about that, because I'm suspecting, in fact I have it on some relatively good authority, that there may be a couple more articles appearing from some respected names within that community. I'm hoping to be talking with one of them later today, and if that talk goes well, I'll give you an update here on the news and views. But basically, I think what we're looking at, folks, is a watershed moment for what one person suggested I call the independent researcher community. And I like that term a great deal. I've been using the term alternative research, but as we've pointed out, as I pointed out in that blog, as William Henry pointed out and Randy Maugans pointed out in their interview, we seem to have two classes of researchers. We have the class that relies on scenario building, wild speculation, whistleblowers, insider testimony, and that basically has been relying on what I call diva capital. In other words, they've built up a certain respect within the community, and now they're drawing upon that capital to proffer wild scenarios that really aren't that well researched. They're not that well documented. And we saw examples of that, during the last year with comets and asteroids and so on and so forth, and death threats and what have you. So we have that class of researcher, and it's very interesting to me that many of them have some sort of connection to the government. I don't know what that portends, if it means anything at all, but it is interesting to me that that seems to be kind of a pattern. Then on the other hand, you have independent researchers that are what I would like to call documents researchers. In other words, and I would count myself among that group to a certain extent, because what we do is we research primarily based on sources that we can reference. We're not afraid to use insider sources, we're not afraid to use whistleblowers, but we don't rely upon them in order to construct our analysis and offer speculations. I think we're at a watershed moment, folks, within this community. I think you're going to see an increasing divide between those of us who take the latter approach with documents, with trying to ferret things out. I could number really, I think, on two hands the researchers that I respect in that regard. Certainly people like Jim Maras. I'm disagreed with him a lot on some of his conclusions, but nonetheless he at least researches and footnotes. Peter Levenda would be another one. Richard Dolan would be another one. Certainly people in that vein that attempt to go out and do research. Stanton Friedman, for example, in ufology, who's done all the work on the Magic 12 documents. Kevin Randall would be another one that tries to focus on documents and analysis. And again, I'm disagreed with those gentlemen, as you probably well know, from Roswell and the Reich, but nevertheless respect their research and how they go about it. So, I think that's what we're coming down to. I think we're coming to a watershed moment, and what I would like to do is solicit your opinions on what you think or what you look for in research within this community, because I've got to be honest, folks, I was truly astonished by the number of comments that I received not only on the website but on the Facebook page that were responsive to that little blog. I had no idea that there were so many people that felt the same way and felt very strongly. Some disagreed very vehemently with me, some didn't. But it's an interesting thing, and I want to solicit your comments and suggestions, because I think we are at a watershed moment. I think we're going to see, to a certain extent, the community split between the kind of New Age fantasy that seems to be the main course or the main diet, and then the minority, which I think, excuse me, constitute a kind of a check on the wild speculation. I also want a final announcement here, folks. I want to thank you all for your support, your prayers, your donations, and also, to my astonishment, your support for the new ebook and Lulu print-on-demand book, Yahweh the Two-Faced God. It's meant a great deal to me and to Dr. DeHart, and I wanted to relay his thanks and mine to you. But anyway, that's the short news and views from the Nefarium for Thursday, January 19th, 2012, the year of the apocalypse. It's going to be very interesting, and I'll be back with updates depending on what I hear this weekend from the response that I've had from a couple of other researchers within the independent research community. Maybe with an update. If not, then there will certainly be, I'm sure, some news on down the line. Anyway, thank you, folks. I hope your year 2012 is going well so far, and we'll see you on the flip side. God bless.